Hi, I'm Laura, your connection coach. Have you ever felt lonely? In a world that feels increasingly divided, it is more important than ever to find ways to connect with others. Loneliness is a common experience, but it doesn't have to be a permanent one. On the Bliss Republic podcast, we explore all the ways we connect with each other and discuss the benefit of having strong relationships. We believe that the key to overcoming loneliness is connection. My guests come from all walks of life and will hear about their unique experience with connection. Whether you're looking to deepen your existing relationships, build new ones, or simply feel more connected to the world around you, the Bliss Republic podcast is for you. Today we have with us Amanda Lee. Amanda is an intuitive sound-led womb alchemy practitioner and human potential practitioner infused with somatic and embodiment practices, ceremonies, and rituals. You founded True and Nature to teach women the language of pleasure and the divine sacred connection to the womb. You work with emotional clearing, somatic practices, and transformational coaching to support women to deeply step into their fullness. You live and work out of the Northern Beaches in Sydney and offer your practices online. Welcome to the Bliss Republic podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's beautiful to be here with you.
I want to lead us into how we've actually met, because it was in 2021 when I reached out to you. This was a very humbling experience because I, for my entire life, was not able to reach a climax. And I consciously decided to do some work around that because life is too short and we're all deserving of receiving pleasure. I reached out to you with a phone call to see what are you doing around this work. And you said, yes, I am doing the womb spiral back then. I think it's now called the womb alchemy course. And if you would like me to take you on this, I think it was like 7 to 10 week journey, please sign up. And so I did. And here we are doing a podcast years later.
So cool. I love that. Yeah, it was a beautiful journey.
True and Nature is the branding that holds all your work and what you do. What does True and Nature mean to you?
Yeah, so it means coming back to your true nature. It also means having a really beautiful and nourishing connection with nature. So I believe that nature is a pathway to really bring us back into our truest self, into our feminine nature, into our softness, into our cyclical nature as women. It's all about coming back into our true nature, our true essence, which to me is beyond our identity. It's beyond Amanda as form. It's who am I beyond that, my infinite self, my infinite being. And it's knowing that part of ourself and starting to operate from our true self, which I believe to be love.
So, how did you get into working around the female sexuality, and what is your timeline with practicing the womb spiral? And I think you recently had taken yourself on the journey again as well.
I'm always taking myself on the journey because what I find, like clients that have gone through multiple times, and myself, I've lost count how many times I've gone through it. Every journey is so different, and the wisdom that comes through and the depth of initiation that comes through for each of the weeks that we journey through, each of the pillars, is really profound. So for me, I'm in the second gate at the moment, which is all around gratitude and nurture the feminine intuition. So really coming back into that. I started on this journey 10, 12 years ago, and it started with health for me. And then it's just weaved its way, health to spirituality to opening more and more. And the more that we open into our truth as women, we'll naturally start to connect in with our feminine and with our womb. Our womb is all around creation. Everything comes from the womb. And so many women just think about the womb as in birthing a baby, which is a huge part of the womb. But we birth everything from our womb. We birth our creations, our businesses, our ideas. Everything comes from the womb. That's where the seed of creation is held. And then that is birthed through what we call the womb gates. So for me, it's just been kind of a natural evolution to land here. I've been working with the womb spiral for probably 4 years now. It's been a really beautiful journey.
I found that many women that I personally know mistake sexuality often with eroticism. How do you see these two terms relate?
There's so much programming around sexuality that is a huge part of the process of having awareness around and letting go. Our erotic nature and our sexuality, our sexual energy is our life force energy. And when we're blocking that, we're blocking our true essence, our true life force energy, not allowing that to flow through our body. It becomes very contracted, especially around the base. And how this can show up for women is in many different ways. It can show up by feeling numb and disconnected to their yoni, to their womb space, to their pelvic bowl, to their feminine nature. They're more in their masculine. Or it can show up in the opposite way of overexpression of sexuality, of seeking attention, of that neediness, of trying to seek for love outside of themselves or seek for attention outside of themselves. And so what happens when we start to bring awareness to our sexuality in a really healthy and grounded way, we awaken that energy within us. And that energy it doesn't have to be a body orgasm or anything like that. It can be an energetic orgasm. And it's allowing that energy to flow freely through your body, not restricting it. So what I find with a lot of women is they're afraid of that energy because it's ecstatic, it's beautiful, it allows your life force to fully flow. Often we're more comfortable in our pain and what we're holding, the old stories, than we are in allowing our true life force to really flow through us.
When I invite people to my podcast, more women than men. So usually the men, they're always like, yeah, let's go with it. Like what they said, send me a time and date, let's run with it. With sending out invitations to women, I often find that either before or afterwards, there's a lot of control around that. And there's this fear. And it's almost like I experience women holding on to more shame in fully being seen as they are in the here and now, and also feeling okay with that. Is that part of the experience?
Absolutely. Shame is something that a lot of women hold in their body, even if it's unconscious. And that could be your own shame. It could be something that's been passed down ancestrally that you've learnt and it's held in the body. And shame is the language that there's something fundamentally wrong with me, which is what Brené Brown talks about through her research of shame and vulnerability. We don't want to be seen in our full essence. We don't want to be seen in our full power. And yeah, there's the shame there to be in our sexuality. A lot of things that come up for women in my work is religious dogma of feeling guilty, of feeling like they're not safe to be in their full expression of receiving and being in their absolute fullness and beauty.
So why do you think that it's more an issue for women than for men?
This goes back so many centuries around the way women have been treated, sexualized. Have you read the book called Her Story?
No, I haven't.
It's a really great one to download. I think you could download it for free. It talks about her story. Women were like fully expressed in being themselves. A lot of women would be like the leaders of community. And then the Catholic Church came in and things started to shift and change. And women were outcast or killed for them being in their full expression, whether that be a medicine woman, whether that be in their sexuality. They were doing that wasn't in alignment with the church was frowned upon. It goes back so far of women not feeling safe in their bodies to fully be themselves. And then as we weave our way through the times to where we are now, women have been overly sexualized and they don't feel safe to be in their full expression. So it's been a very different journey for men. Men have their own pieces that they get to work through and work on within their own sexuality. And a big piece for women is feeling safe in their body, because that's where it all starts. If we don't feel safe in our body, if our nervous system doesn't feel safe, if we can't hold our essence in our body fully, then we're not going to feel safe to be our fullness in the world. So the first thing is to really learn how to feel safe in your body through many different pathways of clearing shame and reconnecting with yourself and nervous system work, so that you can anchor in a deeper trust in yourself and then be in your fullness. Even for me doing this podcast with you, I sent you through some really vulnerable pieces and I was like, oh, I'm feeling it because it's a part of the journey. We're always expanding. We're always growing. There's always, layers. I say our healing's like an onion, there's always the layers. It's just the layers become different. When you first start your healing journey, the layers might feel really intense and overwhelming and all-consuming. And then they start to move into this beautiful space of awareness. You get to hold those pieces with love and compassion and kindness. And that's where it really starts to shift, because the pain that's held in the body that's creating this feeling of being unsafe just wants to be loved. It just wants awareness. It just wants to be met in a way of compassion and love.
I was basically raised to believe problem solving is full on attacking the issue, right? And that's what I would do at the beginning of my healing journey with those big chunks that needed to get out of the way. But emotional healing was really making a difference once I allowed myself to be subtle and to be in my intuition, listening to her going like, oh, what's this notion there? There's something. I can't put a finger on it yet, but maybe tomorrow it will come through stronger. And it's that sort of trust and faith and those things that we can't really say, well, it's exactly that. With that being said, I believe women have many gifts that we don't use, that men are actually crazy about. What do you think are some of these gifts and why are they so important for a woman to step into?
It's really important for a woman to be herself and to work out who she is. And that sounds really simple, but we are so programmed to be a certain way, to look a certain way, to fit into society, to show up, to laugh when you need to laugh, to do all of these kind of things. And when you peel all of that back and you say, who am I? How do I want to show up? How do I want to express myself? That is the most beautiful thing that you can ever experience in a woman. It's not for me to sit here and say a woman needs to be this. A woman needs to be herself. The beauty comes from expressing from her heart, being deeply connected to her body, being anchored in her body, out of the mind, into her feeling nature as a woman, and expressing from the heart. Women give from the heart and they receive through the yoni. So it's allowing this flow to constantly happen. Yeah, it's like allowing your true radiance, your lusciousness, your beauty to come from the heart. It has nothing to do with what you look like. It has nothing to do with what clothes you wear, anything like that. Sure, there are aspects of expression, but it's not who you are.
Yeah. So when you say a woman leads with her heart, what are blockages to that?
One of the first blockages would be knowing how to actually connect with your body. Most people are in their head until they learn to be in the body. And what that process looks like is feeling safe in your body. When you start to move out of your head and that busyness, that's where you start to feel. And when you start to feel, there's aspects of yourself that might feel uncomfortable. cycle. There could be pain or trauma, wounding that's held in the body. There's a beautiful book called The Body Keeps Score, and it couldn't be a better name for that process. The body does keep score of everything that you've been through until you release it, until you acknowledge it, until you have acceptance, compassion, and kindness around that pain that you experienced. You get to move that out of your body in many practices that you can use to support that process. So feeling safe in your body is the first step of really connecting with your heart. Because if you're up here, you're not in your heart. It can be blockages of low self-worth, of not feeling good enough, of stories and limitation that you've been taught over your life. One of the big things that I work with women around, and I really see this pattern, is not feeling worthy of love. That blocks the heart from being able to really receive love, being able to open and go, I'm worthy of love because I am love. And it's a process for women. It was a process for me. You know, in my relationship many moons ago, I don't feel worthy of receiving love. So what we do is subconsciously, this may not be a conscious thing, or you may not be aware of it, but you push love away. You don't let it too close. You don't let people in too close because you don't feel worthy of receiving everything.
What could that look like?
In my marriage, I was married for 11 years and then divorced. I know at the beginning of my marriage, when my partner used to say, I love you, or you're beautiful, or whatever it was, I didn't hear it. And I would push that away. I'd be like, no, you don't. I would kind of create this resistance around not believing that that's true. Underneath, it was me being, I'm not worthy to receive this love. And so I would do everything to push it away, but all I wanted was for it to come closer. And so the journey isn't about someone else. It's not about a partner. It's not about anything like that. It's about remembering that love is who you are. Love surrounds you. It is everything. Love is the fabric of our being, of your being, of nature, of the flowers, of the trees. It is the essence of everything. And when we can remember that, we don't need to go striving to have someone love us or give us anything, because this is where we meet our own fullness. In dating, it can look like just not letting people too close, pushing people away, not receiving compliments, being really judgmental on self. And so a pattern can be dating a lot because you're not actually allowing it in. You can't see it there. So you're always like, no, this isn't it. But if you actually opened your heart and you allowed yourself to feel, it might be.
What is the step to fully allowing love in your heart?
Feeling, allowing yourself to feel. It absolutely is a journey of feeling. And when we're talking about feeling, we're talking about feeling the trauma and pain that's blocking your heart from truly being open. And we're also talking about allowing yourself to feel the beauty of being alive, both. The more you can feel, the more you open. There's practices like breath work is a beautiful piece to use to open your heart. Just even breathing into your heart every day, putting your hand over your heart firmly, one over your womb, closing down your eyes and taking just a few deep breaths up into your heart. And instead of closing down, if you're feeling pain, breathe into it more, because that feeling scares people to feel the depth. Let it move through and it will start to crack open. I love Michael Singer, and he talks about nothing is worth closing your heart over. It's a practice of not only feeling what's already there, it's also a practice of not closing down when something hurts you. When someone hurts you, or you're feeling some kind of self-judgment or judgment towards someone else, feel whatever is there, because beyond that is absolute beauty.
Talking about the womb space, what are the emotions that most of the time we get stuck with?
So in our womb space, we hold a lot of grief as women. as well as anger. But if you're working with anger, once you've felt the anger and you've allowed that rage or anger to come through, underneath that is usually grief that's sitting there, that's desiring to be honored and felt and accepted. And that could be something that you've experienced in this lifetime, or it could be something that's passed through ancestrally as well. When we work through each of the womb gates, there's 7 womb gates. When we get to the womb, we're really working with longing as a woman. And so when we clear around that, often it's grief that comes through for a woman in not being able to feel or receive or be in her truest longing. And when we're talking about longing, we're talking about desire, but true heart longing is something that you really long for. It doesn't have that neediness to it. And then we also work with divine union. True divine union is oneness. It's where the heart and the womb are connected, where the masculine and the feminine become one. We're in our true soul essence of oneness, oneness with everything. This space as well can also bring up a lot of grief for women in this process of not being in divine union with a partner, in themselves, not knowing how to feel that. It can also bring up just beauty and gratitude of realizing and remembering who you are.
I remember, especially around longing, for me, that was a big new one that I hadn't explored at all. In the society we live in nowadays, it's almost like a very suppressed thing that it's encouraged to say, this is what I need and this is what I want, instead of sitting back. For the man, how would they know that you are longing and you're actually healthily providing space for them to step into their masculine? What would you recommend how, as a woman, to step into your longing?
So the first thing is to understand the difference between need and longing. They're very different energetics. If I need something from you, it's like a vampire kind of like, it's taking. Where longing is like, I long to have connection, or I long to have intimacy. I long to be seen. Like, it's a very different vibration and it's a very different frequency. So first step is just to realize the difference. And we have both. We're not sitting here saying like, you don't need anything anymore. That's not true. You're still going to need stuff in life. It's life. We're human. But there's this deeper sense when you connect to your womb that is so beautiful. The longing moves you. It's a felt sense in your body. It is fully activated in your womb. The more you work with that and the more you go through this process, you can connect to that so much easier. When you hold that in your body, you hold that frequency of what you're longing for, you allow it to come, you receive. Whether that takes 5 minutes or 5 years, you allow it to come. And I'm not saying like in this piece, you don't have to take action. You need to really listen to your intuition. There's a part in creation where we just need to allow, where we need to step into surrender, which is womb gate 6. And then we can open into womb gate 7, which is the cosmic womb, into the space of ecstasy and nothing. But this is where everything exists. And that is where your true longing comes from. When we express in a relationship from, I need you to do this, or you're not doing enough of this, it shut men down. It doesn't make them inspired to serve us in the ways that we're longing for. But when we can hold the frequency in our body and we feel it, and then we say, I would love for you to do X, Y, Z. I'd love for you to come home from work and just give me the biggest hug and like just hold me for like 3 minutes. That's felt. Instead of, I don't feel loved by you. You come home and like, I feel like you don't give me any attention. That's neediness. Longing is like, oh, I'd love to like receive this from you. And it's using our voice as women to express what it is we need or desire or look for. It's using our voice to express that. But the difference is from our body, not from our mind.
So let's talk about another example. I went through the gate of I think it was Earth Womb, but correct me if I'm wrong, where I observed myself being in a state of punishing others through denial, removing myself because I was holding anger. This came through trauma of a sister wound where she used to make me feel punished. It was a huge release for me to bring this shadow side into the light, to now be able to actively decide, I don't want to show up like this in the world. When we clear emotional patterns like this, what happens to our womb and our ability to receive?
So you are talking about the earth womb, and we work with surrender,
Hmm.
also the ego. What happens when we emotionally clear? We're not actually clearing anything. What we're doing is we're creating neutrality. When we're holding a belief, it's charged. For example, I am good enough, I'm not good enough. Either way can be really charged. The space that we ultimately want to be in is neutrality in the middle, and groundedness and truth. That's neutrality. So that's what emotional clearing does, brings you back into the truth so that you can see things different and you can start to move differently. You're not as reactive when stuff happens. When we're doing our healing and self-awareness work, we're not just healing ourselves, we're healing generations before and to come as well. And so everything is connected, everything is one. So what impacts you impacts someone else. That's a hard thing to get your head around. But for example, if you walk into a room and you're in like a really bad mood, your energy will be felt by those around you. If you walk into the room and you're like in this beautiful ecstatic current, like just absolutely loving life, that's a very different energetics to bring into the room, and that is felt because we're all connected.
So the womb gates are womb-related focus points. And when we had our one-on-one sessions, you were channeling a lot of additional information and did this method, which to me looked a little bit like paper, rock, scissors, which I'm sure wasn't that. Well, what were you doing and what role does it play in the work?
Paper, scissors, rock. So womb alchemy. So it used to be called womb spiral, and it's had a bit of a name change through the creator of it. So now it's called womb alchemy. So we use muscle testing, which comes from kinesiology.
Mhm.
So we use elements of kinesiology, NLP, timeline therapy, intuitive healing, many different modalities to really support you in that process of unlocking that gate. So, for example, the first gate that we work through, we're clearing shame in the body. So, any ways as a woman that you've held shame in your body around your sexuality, what you look like, your life, where you are, any elements of shame, and anchoring in trust. Trust is we call the key that unlocks that gate. And what I see with most women is when they start the journey, it's kind of like, oh yeah, trust, whatever. Like, okay, cool. And then by the time they start to get to gate 4, 5, 6, especially 7, you're like, oh, I see why trust is so important on this journey. If you don't have deep anchored trust and knowing, and you try to move into surrender and into the cosmic womb, you can't fully let go. So we use the emotional clearing to find the subconscious programming that's held in the body. We bypass the mind, the conscious mind, and we go straight to the subconscious mind of what's held there that's blocking you, that's stopping you from being in your absolute fullness in life. So many women are unhappy. They're in relationships that they're unhappy in. They're in jobs that they're unhappy in. They're not in their full expression.
When it comes to different stories and histories of intimacy and sensuality for different women, how do you identify what is truly holding them back?
So the word like intimacy, if it's broken down, is into me, I see. So intimacy is being able to connect with yourself and to see within. The way that we work through that is through emotional clearing to start with, to start to just bring awareness to any stories that are there from your lifetime, from ancestral or past lifetime that's held in the body, and bringing that neutrality into that story, and then using whatever process is needed in that moment. This is where a lot of the intuition comes, of many different toolkits to support women in exactly what they need in their journey to start to reconnect with their body in a different way, in a way that feels really nurturing and nourishing.
When we worked together, I remember having to work through several weeks of being stuck in the cervix because there was an ancestral trauma stored, which really wasn't easy to access and fully understand. How is it possible that we hold lineage trauma in our womb? And how does it affect us?
When we go through the birthing canal, we're imprinted through the cervix of our lineage, of our ancestral patterns. The cervix holds the memory of this. It's all about love. Our cervix is deeply connected to our heart, and there's a very clear pathway between the cervix and the heart, and also our innocence. Innocence is before we were told who we were or how we need to be. It is being in your true essence. It's being in your true nature. Like if you think about a little child, they're in their full innocence, being in their full expression, playing, like enjoying life. That's being in their true innocence. And so it's coming back to that in ourselves. But the cervix holds that imprint. Each gate holds certain imprints. And so as we go through that birthing process, that's where it's imprinted. And the womb as well. So if you've been birthed through cesarean, you're still imprinted with that ancestral pattern as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I want to dive a bit deeper on it into it. So through my own journey, and this might be triggering for some women to actually look at themselves, but through my journey, I experienced a very strong, intangible bond with the man that I'm intimate with. This bond often stays with me for a very long time after the relationship or lovership has ended. What is this about, and why do women need to be more mindful about this sacred bond?
So whoever we're sharing our body with, our sacred temple with, we hold the imprint and the energetics of that person in our womb. I've heard from 7 to 12 years. Yeah, unless you do some emotional clearing and womb healing and move it sooner. So you're holding the energetics of that person in your womb, in your sacred temple, in your body. It's really important that if you are sharing your body with somebody in these ways, even if you're in a partnership, that you take the time to clear your womb. I teach my clients how to yoni steam. There's de-armoring practices. I teach them how to de-armor. And there's energetic practices of clearing your womb out from the energy of that person.
What is de-armoring?
De-armoring is a massage, but it's for your yoni. And so you can use your hand, or you can use special wands that are created for this. And although de-armoring can create pleasure, it's not really used for that. It's used as a practice to create healing. So what you're doing is you're slowly, with permission of your body. So we need to learn to honor our boundaries of our body, of our yes and our no, and listen, and start to de-armor and unlock your yoni from numbness and pain, both. And a lot of women experience a lot of pain during intimacy, and a lot of women experience numbness. They can't feel, they can't experience orgasmic pleasure or just pleasure in general, right? It doesn't always have to be about an orgasm, but they may not feel pleasure. And so the de-armoring practice can really support, firstly, pain, and then it can support moving through numbness as well. And also working with the yoni steaming too can be really beautiful practices to work with through your cycle to clear the womb.
Thanks for sharing those. Definitely good practices for everyone to check out and familiarize yourself. So you just spoke about honoring your boundaries and also the boundaries of your womb and your female sacred space. What happens, and I see this especially with younger generations, when a woman gets hurt and then instead of dealing with her emotional pain of this hurt, she chooses to distract herself by sharing her bed with someone who she doesn't actually feel a deep and heartfelt connection with. What happens here and what can happen through that behavior?
What honoring our body means is listening to the yes and the no. As women, we need to learn to really feel into our body if we're actually feeling a yes to connect with someone or we're not. If we're doing it for some egoic reason of feeling like we need connection, this is actually going to hurt my ex. By sleeping with this person, I'm going to get back at them. I just want to feel loved. Whatever it is, if it's not from your body being a full yes, then it's a no. And
Yeah.
this goes for being in a partnership too. If your body isn't a full yes for intimacy and connection, being penetrated, it's a no. And maybe you need time to open up to that. You know, a woman's body can take 30 to 40 minutes to open and be really ready for her yes. So many women that I work with struggle with this because they feel bad in receiving. We're kind of programmed that it needs to be quick. When the man's ready, we go. But that's not how it is. The woman's body needs to be fully ready to open and receive, because what happens when we're not is we create more trauma in our yoni, in our womb, and it's more de-armoring for you. So it's more to let go of. It creates more pain and tension. You'll find, like, if you're not ready, it's painful. It's not as pleasurable. And you know, if your partner can't honor that, that might be a conversation that you get to have from that loving way of really talking about, like, this would honor my body. This would feel great to really work in this way together, because we want to honor our body, not shut it down more.
Yeah.
And that goes for partnership or any kind of intimacy. It's like, really listen to your body. If it's a no, like, you have to learn to feel safe in your no.
Yeah.
Because if you can't honor your no, your yes has not a lot of value. So if I say yes to people to go and do something with them, they know it's true because I'm pretty okay with my no. So you know that you're getting me wholeheartedly. I want to be there. But when someone's a yes person and they just say yes to everything, but they've got resentment inside because they don't actually want to be there, that's not a nice energy to be in. It's all about safety and learning to feel safe in your no, listening to your body, like, no, I actually don't want to go to that. Or actually, no, I don't want to have sex tonight. Or, you know, it's feeling safe in your no.
Just thinking about our mothers and their mothers who grew up in a very different time and with less abilities to express themselves authentically and set boundaries and honor their sacred yes and no. Why do we need to consider this when healing our womb space?
Yeah. So I don't think it needs to be challenging, but we're imprinted from the womb, our mother in grandmother's womb, and so on and so on. So we're holding these patterns. And however you grew up observing your mum, if she didn't, for example, if your mum didn't have self-confidence, or she was always talking bad about herself, or she didn't like her body, if you've seen your mum looking at herself in the mirror and criticizing herself, even as a kid, you're subconsciously absorbing all of that. And that's becoming your paradigm. Up until about 12 years old, we are being programmed by parents, schools, community, wherever we are. We're learning these patterns. And so you can look at your mum and see the patterns that your mum holds, and you might see a reflection in yourself of, like, yeah, I do lack low self-worth, or wow, I really criticize myself in the mirror. But it's not about having resentment for your mom or your dad or grandmothers or anything like that, because they also did the best that they could with what they knew. And times were very different then. They didn't have access to what we do today. So it's about having grace and compassion and kindness for their journey but then saying, I don't choose this pattern anymore. It's not mine. And doing the work around that to really step into something new.
What would be other ways to reach the trauma that has been passed on to you? So if you feel like there's something, but I can't quite get behind it, what would be other ways to push a little bit the buttons on that?
Awareness is the big one. Awareness and self-honesty. Just noticing what you notice, noticing those patterns, noticing the stories from your true self, not being caught in the story, but just observing the story, and raw honesty with how you feel, how you're showing up in that. And then feeling the emotion of that in the body, the sadness or grief or frustration or whatever you're working around, just letting that move through, and then choosing again, choosing your story, choosing something different. There's practitioners you can work with. I work with women around that. There's many different modalities that you can use. Plant medicine for me has been a really pivotal part, plant medicine and womb alchemy in my healing. There's many different ways that you can work with that, but ultimately it's allowing yourself to be in your body and feel what is present for you.
Why is it important for a woman to be connected to her full feminine self to attract a healthy relationship?
For a woman to be in her softness, and softness doesn't mean that you're not in your power. It's a soft heart and a strong spine. And this is important for women so that we can be in our full power. We can be in the full activation of our feminine power, our receiving nature, the ability to receive love, the ability to receive whatever it is you are longing for. And the softness allows you to receive. Like if you just soften your body now while you're listening to this, letting your shoulders drop down, allowing your heart to open, feeling your spine strong. Different way to receive. It's not this like forcing and hustling and trying to make things happen and pushing and shoving and burning yourself out. The thing I see with so many women is they're exhausted. They're absolutely exhausted. It's about slowing down and feeling, connecting to the body, feeling the emotion, allowing yourself to come back home into who you truly are, because you want to know who you are so that you can be very clear in who you're calling in, who you're allowing into your life. By being really connected to your body and your feminine nature as well as your masculine. It's both. It's not just one or the other. We start to attract very different people into our life when we're in our power, when we're in our heart. It allows us to really open and receive beauty and love and joy. To me, that kind of exemplifies what this journey is. It's about allowing ourselves to be in that beautiful softness, which is often misunderstood, or women are afraid to be in that.
How is it misunderstood?
You know, the saying soft is weak. And as women, we're taught that we have to go for it. We have to hustle. We have to make things happen. We have to, you know, be these like powerhouses that just make stuff happen. And it does happen, but through softness, through rest, through rejuvenation, through connection with nature, through swimming in the water. But our spine is strong. We're centered. We're connected above and we're connected below to spirit. We're connected above and below through the heart. That's where the beauty is.
Yeah, that's powerful. Love it. So I think we're coming towards the end of the podcast, but before I let you go, I'm going to ask you a question that I get to ask all of my guests. What is the most important thing that you have learned about love in your life?
That is who I am. That it's not something that I have to go and seek for from someone else or try and get from someone else through work or validation, acceptance, approval. But everything that I need and desire and long for is right here in myself. And all I have to do is start to clear away the rubble that's blocking that. so that I can ultimately come back into that truth and knowing that this is my truth. I'm not saying it needs to be someone else's truth. Come back into that truth and knowing that I am love and everything is love around me. And when we can start to operate from this system, this way of knowing, we start to see life very different. We start to see love very different. Love is this beautiful experience of experiencing yourself with someone else. It's not like I need him to feel loved. I can feel loved right here because I know that. I've experienced that. I know who I am, and I can connect to that in any moment. You know, I say that I worked at a really large international humanitarian agency for 9 years, and a part of what they do is build water wells. And that process is digging out all of the rubble and the muck and the rocks and the mud. And eventually they get down to this beautiful, clear water source that has always been there. And this journey is very much like that water well. We're just, removing the rocks and the rubble to get to that water source, your true nature, your true essence, who you truly are. That is always there. It is never ending. It's just omnipresent. So it's not something you can lose. It's not something you can gain. It just is who you are. But it's about remembering and realizing.
And that is what love is. So if people want to know more about your work, how can they connect with you?
The best way to connect with me is through Instagram at True and Nature. I love to receive DMs and connect with people and just hear your story, hear where you're at. So feel free to reach out to me there. I also have my website, which is trueandnature.com.
Are you having any intake for any womb alchemy courses, or are you offering any ceremonies that people can join?
Yeah, so I have Womb Alchemy open at the moment, which is a 3-month journey. If people are interested in that, the best way is to reach out to me through Instagram in a direct message. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been really beautiful to share this conversation with you.
If you enjoyed this episode, please hit subscribe and share this episode with someone who can benefit from it. Have a beautiful day, bliss and bless.